Coming live from New York City, USA is our guest this evening. Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Edina Brown, advocate for equity and fair policies, former elected official, and author of a great book, Make Humanity Great Again. Welcome to the show, Edina.
Thank you. How are you today?
I'm good, Edina, and
Good.
I'm feeling very proud, very happy uh, of getting you on the show so that we can talk about things that actually matter. And
Yeah.
your book, Make Humanity Great Again, and also about about women empowerment and also about equity and fair policies. And we'll also the main thing is that we'll be learning from you the art of connecting with others from a
Mm.
former USA elected official. So,
Yeah.
Edina, welcome to the show once again. And we just want to understand from you the art of connecting with others. As a activist, as a former elected official, on the other side, from the US side, and seeing it from an India side, how would you say what is the art of connecting with others? What does it mean to you?
Well, to me, it is literally it is everything. Knowing how to speak to other people, knowing how to connect with them, really can change your life. So one of the ways that I got into politics is simply by knowing how to connect with other people. I was not intending, to be quite honest, I was not intending to become a politician. That was not on my list of things to do for that year. It was just getting frustrated with something that was happening in my son's school. And I wanted to understand who the leaders were that made the decision in the school. Well, politics had nothing to do with that in the bigger realm, right? Our township politics didn't have anything to do with the school politics and who the school leaders were. But along my journey, along the way of connecting with people and networking and talking, I really got into politics. I started helping with someone's campaign because I was just connecting with people and asking questions. And they're like, hey, can you help with this campaign? I said, sure, why not? And from there, it just propelled me into a life in politics. And so that's really how it started. It's just connecting and talking to people. Sometimes, there's networking events I didn't want to go to, and I went there and I would just meet somebody that would lead me in another direction I never even thought of. I'd make a new friend, just anything. So sometimes we have to really see the value in connecting with people, and not just from a standpoint of what they can do for us, but also just what we can do reciprocally. Like, what can we do for each other? If not anything but share a laugh, share a meal, just share a kind word. And let's always, I believe we should always approach people from that perspective. Yeah.
Right, right, Edina. You were till recently an excuse me, an elected official in Central New Jersey,
Yes.
and you were doing so much, to contribute to issues like mental health,
Yeah.
child welfare, and social change through your work on boards. And
Yes.
now you have written the book about making humanity again, make humanity great again.
Hmm.
We'll come to the humanity part of it later on.
Okay.
But in terms of politics, is it the thing like that government officials do not do the work they should, and politicians or politics always keeps them on their toes to get the things right done? Or is it that there is larger to it, just like you said that from the school part, then you started, you did not want to get into this particular line, and then you went into it bit by bit. What is politics to you that's happening in the US right now? I don't want to go into that political
Yeah.
part of it, but purely from a general person's point
Yes.
of view, exactly what he should understand, because everybody cannot become a politician,
Mhm.
just because something is not happening correctly, or something, some injustice is getting done to him. So I want to understand from your perspective, so that it helps the Indian audience understand how do people view politics from their point of view? Yeah.
So in the United States, it really, and it may differ a lot where you are in India. So, it really, politics is supposed to be for helping people, like everywhere, we hope, right? That politics, monarchies, all those leadership structures are supposed to work for the better good of the constituents, the civilians, etc. But in the United States, I would say, especially over maybe in the past decade or so, it really has become more of a playground for people who are looking to just build power. Maybe it's been more than a decade, right? But from my perspective, that's what I've seen mostly. So it becomes a bit murky, it really isn't doing what it's designed to do. Um, and so we find that in the US, it really, politics is becoming just a way for people to express their own opinion and not really for facts and for truth and for right to get done. And that's really what politics is supposed to be about, right? It's supposed to be about getting the right thing done for the people so that way they can live better, healthier, more enjoyable, and functional lives. And I just, I don't see that happening here. I definitely know some great politicians. In my time as being a politician, I know some great people who I know came into it for the right reason. But when you get in there, it's a different story. It is a very cutthroat environment, and you have to do what you can to survive. And as we know, politicians like to stay elected. Uh, that
Yeah.
was not my perspective when in there. I just wanted to get the job done the best way possible and help people. But for a lot of politicians, the job is, let me just stay elected. Whatever I have to say, whatever I have to do, even if I don't believe it, I might do it because I don't want to lose this title and I don't want to lose the perks that come with the title. So I think that's what we're kind of seeing a lot here, unfortunately.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
And in terms of getting work done from uh, government officials, the
Mm,
executive. Now, how do you view that? How did you view it? Is as a common citizen and as an elected official?
mhm,
Was it that you found that uh, they were giving 100%,
mm,
or as a as a as a common person you found it something, it otherwise? Why I want to
mm,
understand is that a lot of people's uh, resentment, you can say, or
mm,
grievance or complaint is not against politician as such. It comes out that ways, but you see governments can come and go. They are never the governments can come, it can be Democrats and Republicans. In India also it's like, but
mhm.
that's why government servants are there, so that that continuity in communication and service is always intact. That's why they are paid public servants. and
Yeah.
and unfortunately then the whole aspect is as if the politicians should keep them in check and make them work, which they should do in general terms. So I want to understand, and it's not only in US, I see it a lot of places globally. A lot of people who are so-called public servants are not as responsive, or you can say empathetic towards citizens needs, what it was intended to be. So I want to understand, from that perspective, as an elected official as well as being a common citizen.
Yeah. So that's a great question. I will say, before I got into politics, my perspective about policies, politics was very limited. I really didn't believe wholeheartedly that they did everything that they were supposed to do. I didn't believe politicians accomplished 100% or even 50%, but I also didn't think about it very much. And it wasn't until I got involved and actually became a politician that I realized, number one, it's super hard to get things done as a politician. It really is. Um, and the main reason for that is that politicians don't work together very well if they're not in the same party. I've
Okay.
heard from many people who have been in politicians for, decades and decades, that it wasn't always that way. That maybe sometimes there would be a little bit of fighting during a meeting publicly, but then afterward they'd get together and have dinner and they'd hash things out and talk. But what I have seen personally is that politicians will not support each other if they're not in the same party line, or perhaps if their goal is not similar. And so that is what I'm seeing to be a challenge, and why they're not getting 100% of the things done, because it becomes very personal. I have seen, I'll tell you, to be quite candid, I had a lot of issues with racism as a politician. I was the only person of color on the entire, I would say, lineup of of politicians there, and there were 9 of us, including the mayor. And one of the gentlemen who shared that space with me as a fellow councilman literally called me a few days ago, almost like asking for my empathy, as he was going through a lot of challenges. But when I was there, he said a lot of racist things. He did he wouldn't work with me because I was on a different side. So it's very interesting. So as he's asking for my empathy, I've noticed the whole time I was there, and it was 4 years in office, it really was never too much about the people. It was always about people's personalities and who didn't like who and why this one doesn't like the other one. And so that all came rushing back to me when he called. I was like, yep, I still got to get back and be more proactive, because this still exists, and it's not helping anybody. It becomes like a high school, schoolyard kind of situation, and not really leaders working together with leaders. If you know, if I could be so candid about it. I have too many more stories about it, to be honest.
Right, right,
Mhm,
Edina. Why I asked this was, you see,
mhm,
you are an advocate for real change.
mhm.
You have been an elected official, and you never know. Tomorrow you might fight for a bigger office.
Yeah.
Okay, things always look at, always towards the future.
Mhm,
Now, in terms, and I'm talking about from a common man's perspective. If bureaucrats, some are very hardworking, is the same
mm,
in India. Several are there who do not, I don't know, they have their own reasons to not have either the same level of empathy that the citizens desire, or is it? Secondly, you said the politicians, they have their own, say, focus on getting re-elected or partisan agendas. So they will. It's very difficult for them to come together, and we must look at the global part of it. Today,
yeah.
the whole world is watching towards
Oh,
Brazil. What
yeah.
will be the outcome of that particular election finally?
Yeah.
So that the climate change activists and so-called and not not so who believe otherwise, they're all watching it,
Mhm,
and that's a different thing. In terms of citizens, then, who they can expect for change? As you said, bureaucracy, it has its own limitations, you can say, or there are inherent issues which again politicians have to solve, or they don't want to solve. Politicians have their own issues.
yeah.
Then who will go for real change? How will citizens get the real people, for the people, of the people, and by the people, who will actually be thinking for the people? Because, as you said, the two very strong pillars of any democracy are not working that they were designed for. Will it be the NGOs? Will it be social activists? Will it be authors? Who will it be? Who will be the messiah who will come and correct this part of the thing, when citizens will get the constitutional guarantees
Mhm.
that they are told every elections that happens across so many nations of the world?
Well, I think that it's going to be the everyday citizen. I think a lot of people do not understand that they have power, and it doesn't have to be violence. It doesn't have to be yelling and screaming. But to be quite honest, we have the power of our vote, and we have the power of our voice. And I think a lot of people don't know how to leverage that. They don't realize that not only can they have a conversation, they can say, I don't like how this is going. They can write a politician, they can show up to political meetings, and they can say something. And it makes a real big difference, especially if people do this in larger groups. If someone has, even if they just have a book club and their book club studies, policy, or maybe the books that they read are dealing with social change and issues that are more, current affairs based. They have the power to go up to a meeting. And in this country, I would say, at least, that was one of the challenges I saw, was that a lot of people in the community, unless they were older and retired, would not come to meetings to speak up for what they found to be important. And so that's really, I think, where the change is going to come from in our society, is when people realize that they don't have to hold back their vote in order to prove what they think. They have to vote more, and they have to say more, and yeah, you do say something with how you vote, but you also say a lot by just coming out and saying it. Um, and again, it doesn't have to be vitriolic. It doesn't have to be violent. It can just be saying, I don't like that you politicians are fighting. And I will guarantee you that politicians will stop fighting once they realize their constituency base doesn't like to see it. But we're also giving a nod to their behavior by watching it. And again, all of the things I'm speaking on, of course, is from the perspective of being a US citizen, right? Because from what I hear, politics in India, people are much more engaged. Younger people are much more involved in the political process. That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true entirely, but that's what I've always heard. But
Right, right.
here,
In fact, the government, if I remember correctly or understand correctly, or if I've read it correctly, we are working towards reducing the voting age. Right now, it's 21. We are
um,
working towards bringing down to 18.
yeah, and ours is 18, and it's like an everyday fight for people trying to figure out how to get younger people engaged. Honestly, uh, there's the lack of engagement with votership here. It really kind of goes from, I believe, age 35 down. So you really don't get that many people voting as often. Sure, if it's a crucial election, now there's some specific topics that are of interest to younger women and younger men, but in totality, I think the younger people might be a little like sick of all the sick of all the fighting, and they're like, okay, are these the adults in the room? Because then I just don't want to deal with it. And that's what I mean. Like, we can't just put this out of sight, out of mind action. That's not an action, because then we're letting it get worse. And so I think once we realize individually and collectively how much power we have to just talk and just say, I don't like seeing this politician fighting with, I don't want to see people climbing up the Capitol building. But we have people who are okay with it. So until we show that we're not okay with certain things, unfortunately, they will probably persist. Yep.
Right, Edina. And are
Yeah.
you okay with Jimmy Carter's statement, former president, that U.S. I don't know if I can quote it correctly, but
Yeah,
something
please.
like it is the one who is going to war, perhaps the most war uh, loving country, or I don't know the exact words, but
Mm.
it gives that impression that the U.S. is always looking at controlling the world outside. Those are his words, but a lot of people will read. Thinks very differently and in their own manner. I don't want to look at it in a political way, but it also then reduces the good work that it's you can say armed forces are doing or have done in history. I can say that, but I don't know what's your view.
Well, and I can't entirely know what he meant by that statement, but I do think that there are a lot of countries right now that would like to be on top, and there are a lot of fractures and fissions right now in, the US democracy. And I think the US has been on top for a really long time in terms of power and being able to maneuver and also switch and change things that are going in other lands, and that's pretty amazing, right? To be one nation and to be able to control or contort others. Um, I don't, I don't know how long that will last, and I don't know what he meant by that, but I think, it's. I think everybody likes to be on top, right? Everybody likes to
Right,
be
right.
the leading
Absolutely.
power, the superpower. So
Absolutely.
I certainly, I would like to see all these nations work together. I would rather see nations work together peaceably than for there to be just, a couple that are stomping on everybody else personally. And that's how I feel about it. It would be great if the United Nations, really United Nations, I know that's what they try to do, but yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Okay. Okay, Dina. Now coming to advocacy,
Yeah.
advocate for real change, and you are doing a lot of advocacy training,
Hmm.
and in that sense, a lot of connecting with others is also required. So
Yes.
I'll ask you about, you talk about three top tips for connecting with others. If you can enumerate that for our audience, they would learn something. How exactly something can be
Sure.
better and what? Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things I like to do with advocacy training, and that's really just to let people know what that is because it's kind of new. Everyone's used to, diversity, equity, inclusion training, but advocacy training really focuses on teaching people how to advocate for themselves and other people. And um, as boisterous as people seem to be this day and age, there's still a lot of people that are afraid to speak up for themselves when something bad is happening or just something that doesn't seem fair. And then also, of course, in turn, they can't speak up for other people. So, what I would like to say in terms of connecting, when linking the two, right? Because advocating also means that you're connecting with people, you're building community, all those things, because you need other people to buy into what you're saying in order for you to have influence and to be able to advocate for yourself and for someone else. And so, three tips I would give people for that is number one, just be present. And by present, meaning if you are talking to somebody or you are trying to express what you want from someone, be in that moment, be in that conversation, give the person eye to eye contact. Don't be looking around the room. Certainly don't be on your phone and just be present. The second thing I'd want to say is be interesting. When you're making an ask to somebody, there's nothing worse than just being interesting only to yourself. When we are asking something of someone else, or even, I guess, in a way, commanding something of someone else, we still want to be mindful that there is something that they have as an interest as well. So be interesting in terms of show interest in what the other person's need or want is, but also just be interesting in general. Speak in an effusive way if possible, but always keep the other person in mind in what the conversation is about and what your ask is. And the third thing I'd say is just practice. It's funny, but I have a friend who was super, super timid, and I'm not. So, like, I'm okay to send something back if it's the wrong order. I'm okay to say, oh, this needs to be fixed. That's
but
okay.
but it was not but it was not always
No,
way
no, not always.
you yes, you overcome all the hurdles and you
Yes,
are where you are today, isn't it?
yeah,
It's
and
it's that is actually women's self empowerment,
yes,
pass through all the troubles and to succeed.
yes, absolutely. And that's the third, honestly. That the third is just practicing every single moment you can speak up. Don't allow yourself to get off, don't go, oh, next time I'll do it. I have to tell her. I know one day we were somewhere and she's like, no, no, next time. And I said, no, you really wanted that item. They gave you the wrong item. And she's like, no, no, it's okay. And I said, this is your practice. Just go in. This doesn't have to be a fight. And I think that's what people think oftentimes is that speaking up is a fight. Like you're trying to pick a fight with somebody or you're being confrontational. And it really isn't. It's just voicing your opinion and doing it respectfully and hoping, of course, that the other person will understand and meet whatever that need is. So those are the three tips that I'd like to give to people for advocating. Yep.
That's good.
Yeah.
Great tips, and in fact, coming from you, obviously it lends a lot of authority to what you are saying. Anywhere for anybody who is looking at connecting with others effectively. So
Yeah.
now, coming down to your book, Edina,
Mhm.
about make humanity great again. Uh, what led to this book? What are you talking about on in this book? And is it out or is it going to
It
be out?
it has been out for a while. I'm actually writing a second book, and I I wrote this book really because I was super frustrated with people being quiet about things that were happening in the world. And I still feel the same way. I mean, it's to me, I look at the book, it's like, I mean, this book is still super fitting for this moment in time. And it was me looking at people having a lot of conversations at their kitchen table, or people would talk to me and complain to me about things they saw, but do nothing. They would not vote. They would not speak up at school. They would not do anything to change things. And so I wrote the book just out of frustration. It really was just me saying, hey, if you don't want to see trash in your neighborhood, clean the trash up. If you don't want to see, people fighting, then teach people how to be kind. If you don't want to be a part of racism, then you person who you are, learn how to connect with people who don't look like you. So it really is that. It's just kind of like almost just a shaking of humanity. Like, listen, we can fix these things. It takes a bit of conscientiousness, it takes a bit of intention, and we can change all these things. Just each one of us, if we do one little step here or there, we can change it. In the beginning of the book, I do talk about civilizations like the Mayan culture, etc., that crumbled because they failed to pay attention to the ways in which their civilization was like breaking down, and they just thought, oh, it's no big deal, that's no big deal, and then eventually it crumbled. And I think we have to be so cautious that even though we have technology and we have all these other brilliant things that we're bringing up and building, this social aspect of humanity seems to be crumbling a bit, and we really got to work on that, because I don't care how many computers we have and how many iPhones or anything else, if we don't get that part right, those things will exist well beyond us. So we have to get that right, not only from an environmental standpoint, of course, but if we're all fighting and blow each other up, then what's here? So we have to really work on the social aspect of humanity.
Right. And what about the new book? When is it coming? And
Well, I
what is the
don't know. I am giving myself a deadline to get it written within the next several months. If I can beat that, would be great, but we'll see with that combined with everything else I'm doing. And but I'll make sure to let you know when it comes out and what it's about. It will be nonfiction still, because I have a lot to say about humans, and I'm one of them, so I'm not telling everyone they're doing wrong and I'm doing right. I think collectively we got to get it together.
so is it about earlier was to make humanity great again? Will it be about being a politician, about making America great again?
Probably not. Probably not. But it'll definitely be about people, because I love, actually really I love human beings and I love humanity, and I wish we all just, loved each other and were kind. So I'm always looking at how we can push each other in that direction.
Right, right. I can clearly see the human behind the former elected officials. So that
Yeah,
is very much sure. You may hold a post, but you cannot become politician in the true sense, in the sense that you always look at getting re-elected
right.
instead of doing things and going for real change. I can feel
Absolutely.
that. That's the vibe I'm getting. That it will
Thank
always
you.
be. You'll always be fighting. You'll always be the lone voice for the right, and
Thank
be the
you.
real change.
Oh,
Seriously,
I
I've been
appreciate
I've got that knack of uh,
it.
making can see through people, and I can tell
Oh,
you
thank you.
that that's the vibe I'm getting. I'm a man of vibes. I believe that. Seriously.
No, no,
Okay.
I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you.
Yes. And now, in terms of, so we've talked about advocacy, we have talked about book. Let's talk about women empowerment. This topic cannot be complete without that, because you see, you were you came from a background where you felt that you were the last to be heard and the
Mm,
last to be picked for anything good growing up. And
mm,
years of physical and emotional trauma, it led to self-esteem and made you very timid. So earlier
mm,
you were saying you are not that anymore. So that's the biggest victory. We can win over others, but the biggest victory is when you win over your own fears and
mm.
doubts and come out glowing like the morning sun.
Oh, yeah, that is true. That is something I teach. I'm glad that you picked that up. For women, I think our biggest hurdle, for ourselves personally, is sometimes there's a sense of false confidence that we have to work through, and it can be shown through maybe our clothing, what we wear, what we say, but how do we really feel inside? And that can also be seen in how we treat other women, right? If we are not kind to other women, if we're not giving each other a hand up, that is very much connected to how we feel about ourselves as an individual. So I think women's empowerment, like you just said, really is about empowering ourselves, feeling confident in ourselves, and not just confident in the way that the world says, like, our hair looks perfect, our makeup looks perfect, but do we really value just our every part of our being? Do we value our silly laugh or our smile or our crooked, teeth or anything that someone has that might be different? Can we like really hold on to that and value it? So that way, when we see another woman, we're not intimidated because what she has going on is different or better. And I'll tell you, that's not easy. It's not easy for me. It's not easy for any of us because we have too many opportunities to compare ourselves now. I mean, when I was growing up, we did not have an Instagram or a Facebook. So I didn't really know what people were eating for breakfast. And I didn't know that I was eating something really bad. And I was like, or I was eating Cheerios and they were having like croissants and, French fries. I don't know, whatever. But I think that we constantly have this like comparison tools in our face, and it makes it so much harder for us to not only like love ourselves and appreciate ourselves, but then to also look at someone else and say, oh, I'm so proud of them. So I mean, I would honestly say, kind of cut back on the social media, which, not great for business all the time, but I think that would help a lot. And then just kind of spend time with yourself as a woman, men too, but spend time with yourself and just try to like really love and appreciate all these little nuanced aspects of your personality, the way you look, the way you sound. Just take the time to appreciate that. And then hopefully with time you'll be able to appreciate the same in others. It's a work. I think it's a lifelong process, to be honest, because we are still human. We are going to get jealous. We are going to get envious, scared, fearful, all those things. But if we're just aware, that always helps.
Right, right,
Mhm.
Edina. And one more thing, as you mentioned that you wanted to succeed and be close to others, but you were terrified all the time. You see, lot of women into great fields, doctors, engineers,
Mhm.
any field you take, everywhere, globally, and many of them who are growing up because of the circumstances they are in,
Mhm.
even they have a lot of talent, sometimes you either have fear of failure or you are just afraid of uh, going out and getting your place under the sun.
Yeah.
That's the difference to just take that step, and the world is waiting for you like it waited for you, but you had to barge out of your situation and be where you are. So what would you tell them? How do you uh, get your place that is so rightfully yours? How did you do it? What would you share to such people?
Hmm. I feel very moved by what you just said because that has been a challenge for me this year, actually. Like this has been the year of me figuring that out even for myself. To some, it looks like I've done quite a bit, but to myself, I have really stalled on a lot of really great things that I've wanted to do, even past things that I have done. And I would say what I'm doing for myself is kind of a little bit what have I said before. It's just really spending time with myself and understanding, but also pushing away any thoughts of comparison to other people, and also pushing away negative information, whether it's the news, media, etc., and negative information about myself. Anything that will in any way diminish the positive aspects of myself have to be removed because those are the things that will slow you down. So you don't, and I believe in energy, right? So I also don't think it's great to gossip about other people. All those things really contribute to how you look at yourself as well. So I mean, I will be honest, I've been really working on that all year. It's just, I've never been a gossiper, by the way. I'm not really like a gossipy person, but I will say there are still, I think in all of us, we still have insecurities and fears and doubts. And so just really working on putting those words out of our mind because it's all words. We're always talking up here and we just have to pick better words. So This is definitely something that I've been working to master as well.
Right, right.
Mhm.
In fact, talking of women empowerment,
Mhm.
I'll show you something. The
Oh,
red thing that you see in background is the sari. Have you
yeah.
heard of an Indian sari?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, that is a Indian sari,
Hmm.
and it's bandhani print modal silk sari coming from Gujarat, Bhuj area. It
Hmm.
is not a pure handloom sari, but you
Mm.
will get the same in a handloom mode, handmade. And I'll tell
Mm.
you, when you talk of women empowerment, a lot of women are part of the handloom sector, and that's why I put this sari without naming any company. I'm looking forward for more and more people from either handloom sector,
Mm.
handmade, small artisans, painting, anything that is that if I find is true, good, not only from India but from across the world. That's why I'm mentioning it here. That even
Oh.
from, and I don't want the product. If it are very close by, they can show me the product. I can put it on the backdrop, and then again I can give it back. But if it's
Mm.
international or anybody who does not want to do that, they can share me some nice pictures, and I will certainly share it so that people either know about the industry, especially those people who are, especially women, what you call founders or women
Mhm.
centered uh, businesses,
Business. Yep.
small businesses, especially, not only for India, but also across the world. That's the whole notion. And if there is a very, very good business that I think is perfectly, that can run, and I can run with my full conscience,
Mhm.
that yes, I've selected the right, I will certainly take the name. But till
Oh,
then, I will certainly be very happy to. That's my
oh,
small contribution on my part. I just
that's
wanted to
great.
share it.
I love it. Thank you. That's great. I love that.
Thank you. Thank
Mhm.
you, Edina.
Yeah.
And my last question then is, how do people connect with you? Obviously, they have
Oh,
learned whatever they could, but then not only, a lot of Indians are also in your constituency, and I'm sure a lot of
yes.
people will listen to that. And if they want to connect with you, know more about what you are doing, how they can be a part of what you are doing, to be a part of the real change on the ground. How do they
Yes,
do?
absolutely. Uh, People could always reach me on social. So I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Edina Brown. So that's the best way. Inbox me. Uh, I don't know, respond to something I post. And that's really the best way to connect with me. I can also be reached via email. I will be rebranding my company soon. So the email address will change. So I'd prefer to, keep to social media, but I'm also on LinkedIn. I said LinkedIn, I'm sorry. I'm also on Instagram, I should say. So Instagram, I have a public page. So it's also still my name, Edina Brown. So it's pretty easy to find me on social media. And if you connect with me on social media, this is just for anyone who's watching and listening. I can then share when I rebrand. I will be happy to share my new email address. So, but please, feel free. LinkedIn is really the best. Send me a message. I'd love to chat.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
On
much.
this note, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you. Take care.